We need to forego the things that feel good in the moment if we want to accomplish and achieve more meaningful and more profoundly important things in this life. That thing that you're working towards, it's gonna feel hard and uncomfortable at times for a reason, because the best things are on the other side of that discomfort, of that feeling hard in the moment. The beauty of delayed gratification is the pleasure you get on the other side of this discomfort right now is far greater than that instant fading pleasure that you're feeling by caving into the instant gratification. Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the external pressures and expectations that the new year brings? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in your current situation or feeling anxiety about falling behind. The good news is you are not alone. So many others, myself included, are feeling the exact same way. The further good news is therapy can help. A therapist can help you distinguish external pressures from your own internal values. Develop a timeline that feels authentic to you rather than one imposed by society. Process any feelings of inadequacy or comparison and whatever else you might be feeling or experiencing. Whatever challenges this new year might bring up for you, BetterHelp, who is sponsoring today's episode, can help make it easier. BetterHelp is a therapy platform that is entirely online, making it both comfortable and convenient. Simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And don't worry, you can easily switch therapists at any time if it's not the right fit. Start fresh at any day of the year with BetterHelp by clicking the link in the show notes or go to betterhelp.com/unfulfilled to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hey guys, and welcome back to Unfulfilled. Thank you for showing up to today's solo episode. If you're new here, welcome to the show. My name is Camille, and you're here because you want to live a more fulfilling life. So let's venture down that journey together. Today, we're going to talk about delayed gratification, what it is, why it's important, and there's two different spectrums here. Either you lean too much into delayed gratification or you don't incorporate it at all. And like anything, it's a balance. So we're going to dive into the importance of delayed gratification in your growth journey, in living a more fulfilling life, and why it's so important, especially with the messages that today's society is sending us. Before we dive in, fun fact, most of you are actually not subscribed if you're listening to this episode. All you need to do is press follow or subscribe, and all it will do is give you access to episodes every single week when they come out, as well as be so meaningful and helpful in my efforts to grow and support the Unfulfilled community. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself, for being a part of this community. If you're returning or new, I'm so grateful for you. So excited that you're here. And let's dive in. Delayed gratification. So what is it? Delayed gratification is the ability to resist the immediate temptation, resist that immediate sense of pleasure in order to achieve a greater reward later on. So what does this look like? Okay, saving instead of spending, right? Sacrificing going out one night with your friends in order to get a good night's sleep for tomorrow. Waking up early to go to the gym instead of sleeping in. Taking a freezing cold shower because you know it's really good for your physical health and your headspace, but knowing that it's going to feel uncomfortable in the moment. Choosing to eat that healthy meal instead of ordering the burger and fries that you really want in this moment because you know that your future self is going to feel grateful that you did. It's essentially the idea of just sacrificing that immediate dopamine boost because you know that it's going to benefit you in the future. It's delaying that gratification, that pleasure, because it's going to be even more meaningful in the future looking back. You're going to be so grateful you did. So you guys might have heard of this concept before. It's a big topic in the self-improvement space because the way that we can really achieve our goals is if we delay gratification, is if we lean into challenges and discomforts in the moment, because the best things, the most important achievements are on the other side of that. It's not on the other side of constantly saying yes to all the pleasures and all the things that bring you joy in the moment. But like anything, it's a balance. It's an art. It's not leaning too far one way and not leaning too far the other. So there's two ends of the spectrum here. Maybe you're someone who's always saying yes to the instant pleasures. You always are chasing that dopamine spike, that instant gratification, and you find it hard to stick to your goals because of it. You're constantly getting sidetracked by what feels good in the moment. Or maybe you're more like me and often lean too far into delayed gratification. And maybe you don't incorporate enough joy and pleasure in your life because you're so focused on being productive all the time, on being busy, on foregoing that instant pleasure because you're so focused on achieving your goals and delaying that gratification. And then it starts to take the opposite effect. So today we're going to talk about both. So whichever of the two buckets that you fall into, you're going to love this episode and these insights and really relate to them. So, first, let's talk about the importance of delaying gratification in your growth journey and in your pursuits. So, whatever your goals are, if you're constantly losing focus because you're saying yes to the things that feel good in the moment, rather than continuing down the path of achieving your goals because it feels hard, you're never going to accomplish them. We need to forego the things that feel good in the moment if we want to accomplish and achieve more meaningful and more profoundly important things in this life. That thing that you're working towards, it's gonna feel hard and uncomfortable at times for a reason, because the best things are on the other side of that discomfort, of that feeling hard in the moment. The beauty of delayed gratification is the pleasure you get on the other side of this discomfort right now is far greater than that instant fading pleasure that you're feeling. So, that more meaningful sense of fulfillment and happiness on the other side of this moment, of this discomfort, it's far greater than this temporary discomfort, this temporary maybe lack of pleasure. And when you start to incorporate this sense of delayed gratification, you start to see that. You start to say, like, oh, wow, actually, it's so much better striving for something that I'm proud of myself for, that makes me love who I am and the path that I'm walking down, rather than constantly just leaning into the pleasures and constantly wanting more. When you start to venture down that path of delayed gratification, as I said, it can almost become addicting, and you want to constantly be productive and busy because you know how good it can feel, how much deeper it can feel than just saying yes to the pleasures. So, some psychology background. I was first introduced to these concepts by Dr. Micah in a previous episode. I'll link our conversation in the show notes. I really loved it. But she introduced me to this concept of hedonic happiness versus eudaimonic happiness. So what hedonic happiness is that's the instant pleasures. That's that temporary spike that you get from saying yes to the short-term enjoyment, satisfaction, and pleasures. So it's ordering the burger and fries. It's sleeping in. It's going out with your friends knowing that tomorrow you might regret it. But eudaimonic happiness, that's achieved by pursuing something of meaning, of purpose, of leaning into authenticity. That contributes to your long-term fulfillment and happiness, a pursuit that you're proud of, that you truly value. By accomplishing those goals and pushing off those temporary pleasures. Those are the two kinds of happiness. So delayed gratification means incorporating more of that eudaimonic happiness into our lives, because we're pushing off that temporary hedonic happiness in order to achieve our bigger goals and to stick to our more grander purpose and our why, even if that means temporary discomfort. So it's working towards something that's meaningful to us, that feels authentic to who we are, even if the path feels difficult. But again, the best things come on the other side of doing something difficult in the moment. That kind of lasting eudaimonic happiness only comes from temporary discomfort, from leaning into challenges and pushing through them. Whereas, okay, one side of the spectrum is if you constantly are buying into that hedonic happiness, that instant pleasure, that instant gratification. If you're only leaning into these kind of pleasures, the ones in this moment right now, constantly chasing that instant dopamine, you might be feeling like you're constantly missing that deeper sense of fulfillment in life. Like you don't really have a deeper purpose or something bigger that you're working towards. You might not feel like you're living authentically with yourself because you're not really going after something and working towards something that has a bigger purpose and a bigger why. It's just constant pleasure after constant pleasure after constant pleasure. And it constantly leaves you feeling like you need more, constantly leaves you chasing more of that pleasure because it's temporary, it fades. It never feels lasting or enough. It never gets to that deeper sense of fulfillment and doesn't last, which is why incorporating delayed gratification is key to achieving that deeper sense of fulfillment. So you can buy into all the temporary pleasures you want, book all the self-care treatments, go on all the fancy trips, eat all the junk food you want, but it's never going to give you what you're chasing. It's just going to be temporary pleasure after temporary pleasure, but it's never going to get to that deeper level. It's just going to stay at this surface level here. So if you're feeling like you're missing that deeper purpose, that deeper sense of fulfillment, this is your sign to lean more into delayed gratification. Maybe put off that temporary pleasure and ask, what's something more meaningful? What's a goal that I can aim towards that might feel difficult along the pursuit, but that's going to give me that deeper sense of self-worth and pride in what I'm doing? It's going to make my future self really proud of the path that I'm walking towards. And once you start to incorporate this delayed gratification, you'll find that when you achieve those goals, when you start to look back and say like, wow, that was so worth putting off that pleasure because I feel so good about myself and so good about what I was able to accomplish by saying no to that hedonic happiness in the moment. it increases that sense of eudaimonic happiness. And you start to learn that incorporating this delayed gratification incorporates more of a well-rounded happiness. But it's hard, right? Because our society constantly is telling us that everything should come easy. Everything should be instant gratification. Everything should come quickly and at the snap of our fingertips. And we shouldn't even have to get off the couch to have a dinner delivered to us. But again, by constantly leaning into these comforts, it's not going to give us that deeper sense of fulfillment and happiness that we need, that well-rounded one that incorporates eudaimonic happiness. Often if something looks uncomfortable or a bit scary or intimidating or is something we really don't want to do in that moment, that might actually be the path to head down, because on the other side of that, our future self's going to look back so proud. So again, if you're on that spectrum where you're constantly chasing the instant pleasures. You find it hard to stay focused and achieve your goals because you're constantly being pulled into the dopamine and it takes you off course. You find it hard to say no in the moment to delay that pleasure. This is your sign to incorporate more delayed gratification. Okay, how? Start small. Start by saying no to the bag of chips when you have that craving, or not going to the pint of ice cream every single night, or not just playing the next episode of Netflix knowing that you need to go to bed to wake up early. Start with these small promises to yourself and sticking to them regardless of how much you want to lean into that comfort in the moment. Start with these baby steps. And then as you do, as you stick to the path of accomplishing these goals that are more meaningful to you, that your future self would actually be proud of, it's going to start to feel easier, because you're going to start to look back and say like, wow, that was worth it. I'm really glad that I didn't lean into that junk food, or that I did go to bed 30 minutes earlier to get some more sleep, that I didn't lean into that temporary pleasure because my future self is so much better off for it. Whereas if you did lean into that temporary pleasure, which is okay sometimes, but you don't want to constantly just look back with regret that you didn't stick to the promise that you made to yourself. Take these small steps to start showing up for yourself and your bigger purpose and your bigger why, to show up for yourself, to give yourself more of that eudaimonic happiness that you know that you need to get to that deeper level of fulfillment. I find it so helpful to think about how your future self is going to feel. When you wake up early and go to the gym, think of that future self leaving the gym and how good they're going to feel going into their day. Or your future self is going to be so thankful that you didn't lean into that pint of ice cream or the bag of chips late at night just because you were feeling anxious or worried. They're not going to have that sense of regret. They're going to look back and say, wow, I'm really proud of myself for not leaning into that comfort in that moment, because I feel so much healthier and more energized right now. And I got such a good night's sleep because of it. Having this perspective, zooming forward to how your future self is going to feel, can help with your present self in making that decision in the moment and not leaning into that comfort to set your future self up for success. So this zoom out and this perspective is really helpful in taking those small steps to incorporate delayed gratification. Okay, now on the flip side, maybe you incorporate a little too much delayed gratification in your life. Maybe you're a busy bee. Maybe you constantly need to be productive. This message is for you. Once you're on the growth journey and start to really get in a groove of feeling productive, when you're really excited to strive towards something and improving yourself, it can become easy to fall too much into delayed gratification, to constantly want to chase that sense of pride, that sense of feeling productive and feeling like we're constantly growing. But there's definitely been times where I feel like I've leaned too far into this, where I want to be productive and working all the time and be the healthiest person I can be the absolute best I can be. And that's definitely also part of my type A perfectionist personality coming out there, but I'm sure some of you can relate to this. And what would happen is during these times, I would end up foregoing any hedonic happiness in exchange for eudaimonic happiness. I would almost not incorporate any instant pleasure or gratification in the moment because I was so focused on setting my future self up for success, where the key is incorporating both into our lives. So in this podcast pursuit, especially in the beginning, well, still now, I prioritize my weekends in working and growing the podcast. And often I would forego social plans because I was really passionate about growing this and creating content for the community and leaning into this thing that was my bigger why, my purpose, my passion. I was so focused on setting my future self up and improving and growing along the way. I was very, very focused on this eudaimonic happiness. And I don't regret it. That was my priority and passion, and I'm really proud of that. So I don't have regret, but there's been many Sundays where I've gotten to where I'll look back and say, I honestly now feel like being social, but the weekend is over and I didn't incorporate enough just fun and play and pleasure to just unwind and rest and just have fun while also working towards that eudaimonic happiness. So all that to say, I leaned a little bit too much into delayed gratification, and I didn't incorporate enough gratification in the moment. I was essentially telling myself that I need to spend all of my time working on the podcast, that time is precious, and that the more time I spent on it, the better the outcome's going to be. But it ended up having the opposite effect. It's kind of like that curve where, like, okay, instead of being on the top where you have that great balance, I was leaning too much into delayed gratification, and it ended up making me feel a little more lonely, a little less happy. Because although I felt really proud of the work and progress I was making, I was missing any sense of hedonic happiness. I was delaying all of my happiness for later on. So as you might have guessed, the key here is balance. The key is striving for both. Life is all about balance, right? So it means incorporating things to feel pleasure and joy at times, even if that means not being productive, even if that means we're not growing or advancing in that moment. We're doing it because it's incorporating joy in our lives. And I've gotten a lot better at incorporating these moments of rest, moments of play, moments where I'm not productive or growing anything or working towards something, simply just to incorporate hedonic happiness. Because life is short. And if I'm not happy and enjoying the journey, what is it all about? So feeling successful and incorporating eudaimonic happiness doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice those instant pleasures, those things throughout our day that simply just bring us joy and make us smile, and leaning into those pleasures at times, especially after we've accomplished something towards our goals. Take the moment to celebrate and enjoy. Since I've started to incorporate a lot more just pleasure and things that bring me joy, I felt a lot more balanced and a lot happier and energized and motivated on my eudaimonic pursuits, on my pursuits where I am delaying gratification, because I'm also incorporating the other spectrum, that hedonic happiness. So often I'll be like, okay, I've had a really healthy and productive week. I've really made progress towards my goals. Now what fun am I going to have this weekend? What social plans am I making? I'm ready to like have some rest, feel a little silly, feel a little social. Or maybe there's a week where I was more social and a little less productive. On the weekend, I'm like, okay, I'm really excited to just put my head down, work on the podcast, and just feel productive. Maybe go to some yoga classes and just like be healthy and spend the weekend with myself. Ultimately, your body is telling you what you need. So again, if you're feeling that burnout, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling like you're constantly just grinding and always feeling like you need to be productive, incorporate more rest and play. I've been there. Trust me, I understand how that feels. And incorporating the rest and play doesn't mean that you're not still reaching towards your goals. The rest is the work a lot of the time. Brian Cullen, productivity coach, told me that. And what that means is we need to incorporate hedonic happiness to pair with the eudaimonic happiness. So know that taking the evening or the day or weekend to just enjoy is not going to make or break your long-term productivity and your long-term goals. And likewise, if you're feeling like your days and weeks are just being filled with surface level pleasures, just social interactions, hedonic happiness, you're just like constantly striving and chasing these instant gratifications. Maybe you're missing a sense of deeper fulfillment, a deeper purpose and why. Lean into delayed gratification. Practice saying no to that pleasure in the moment because you know it's going to benefit your future self. You know it's going to bring you closer to achieving that goal that you really want to. Practice incorporating more habits that you know is going to bring you closer to the person you want to be, to the life you want to be living. And it's going to give you more meaning and purpose and fulfillment because you're working towards your eudaimonic happiness. And know that even if it means feeling uncomfortable in the moment, in the pursuit at times, if it feels difficult, that is okay. That often means you're on the right path, and that means you're striving towards something great. And remember how proud your future self is going to be and how thankful they're going to be that you may have said no to the pleasure in the moment. And that pleasure that you're going to get in the future is going to be so much deeper and more meaningful and lasting. And one final note, this might depend on the phase in your life. So personally, I'm in a phase where I am delaying my happiness a little bit more because I'm working on so many goals this year. And that's a level of awareness that I'm very okay with. It still means I'm incorporating hedonic happiness in my life. I'm incorporating pleasures and social time and fun and rest, but I'm straying a little bit more towards delayed gratification. So know that different phases in your life might look a little bit different, but striving for a bit of a balance between the two is always key. And that's always going to give us a more well-rounded sense of happiness, incorporating those surface level pleasures that just make us smile and those deeper pursuits that leave us feeling more fulfilled and inspired and that feel more meaningful. So delaying gratification is key to our long-term fulfillment, but know that we shouldn't delay so much where we aren't feeling any joy and happiness right now. We can incorporate both. Thank you so much for tuning into today's solo episode. If you like this episode, please leave a rating or review wherever you are listening. Send this to a friend who might enjoy it and press follow or subscribe if you aren't already. I'm so grateful that you all showed up today. Thank you for being a part of this community. I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to becoming more fulfilled.